you often find yourself asking everyone else what they think before you ask yourself. Or maybe you already know what you want to do, but you hesitate. You poll a few friends, you do some extra research, you talk yourself in, out, and sideways around the same decision. That hesitation, that reaching outwards instead of in, that's a sign of eroded self-trust, and most of us aren't even aware it's even happening. So in today's conversation, I want to talk about why we lose trust in ourselves, how it quietly shapes everything from our confidence to our planning habits, and how to rebuild that trust in a way that actually lasts. This isn't about thinking more positively or forcing confidence. It's about learning how to trust the process of being you. Because when you do, everything changes. Your decision making gets clearer, your planning becomes easier, and you stop outsourcing life to other people's opinions. So let's start here. Most people don't realize that self-trust isn't a feeling, it's a relationship. And like any relationship, it's shaped by experience. It can be built, strengthened, or damaged over time. So if you're someone who second guesses decisions constantly, feels uncomfortable without external validation, struggles to follow through on plans that you've made for yourself, you've probably lost contact with your own internal authority. And usually that didn't happen randomly. It happens in small, repeated ways. You weren't born doubting yourself. You learned that your instincts weren't safe to follow. So let me give you a few common ways that this shows up. Maybe you were praised more for being obedient than for being authentic. So you learned to silence your own signals. Or maybe you got used to watching others override your needs, so you internalized that your needs don't matter, or at least don't matter as much. Maybe you were only valued for what you did, not who you were. So you learned to produce, not feel. And with all of this, you were trained to override your natural cues. So what do we do with that? Well, we rebuild. And how do we do that? With constant lived evidence. And the first step in rebuilding self-trust is this. Notice where you abandon yourself. Start to observe, without judgment, when you say yes, when you mean no, when you ask advice, when you already know what you want or what you need to do, where you apologize for taking up space, or where you make a plan and then immediately doubt it. Because these are moments when trust is weakened. But there are also moments where repair can begin. I used to even apologize to a lamppost for bumping into it, and I'm not joking. That's how deep my conditioning was. So if I can do it, anyone can. So let me introduce you to a very simple tool that can help you with this, and it's called the Decision Debrief. Here's how it works. Every time you make a decision, big or small, you take a couple of minutes to reflect afterwards. You ask, what did I feel was right before I acted? What did I do? Was there a gap between what I felt and what I did? What influenced me away from my instinct? And what would I choose differently next time? You're not doing this to shame yourself. You're doing it to gather data on your patterns. And over time, you start to see what builds trust and what erodes it. Because here's the key. The goal isn't to be perfect. The goal is to become familiar with the sound of your own inner voice. Because right now it might be buried under layers and layers of conditioning, approval seeking and overthinking. But it's still there. I promise you, it's still there. And the second step in rebuilding self-trust is follow through on tiny commitments. Don't start with grand plans. Start with one thing per day that you can decide on your own and then honor it. That could be drinking 1 glass of water before coffee, closing your laptop by 6 p.m, going for a 5-minute walk after lunch. When you keep a promise to yourself, even a small one, you show your brain that your word is trustworthy. And that's what self-trust is really built on, repeated evidence that you'll show up for yourself. Now, let's talk about the part that trips most people up. That's repairing self-trust after you've broken it. We all do this. We make a plan, we don't follow it, then we beat ourselves up thinking the shame will keep us accountable next time. But shame erodes self-trust further. It reinforces the belief that you're not worth keeping promises to. Your brain starts to associate your own goals with disappointment or failure. So even when you set an intention, your subconscious is already expecting it to fall through. It becomes a feedback loop. You plan, you hesitate, you abandon the plan, and your brain quietly logs that as evidence that you're unreliable. Not because you are, but because that's the story it's been trained to believe. And I've said before, your brain doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's not real. It goes with what you're telling it and the evidence that you're constantly showing it. And that story can only shift through repeated emotional safety and follow through. So instead, try this. When you break a commitment to yourself, respond in the way that you would to a friend you love. You'd be honest, you'd be kind, you'd be curious. You might say, that didn't go how you planned, and that's okay. What got in the way? What kind of support would have helped you follow through? Or what does this tell you about how you're really feeling? This kind of response, the response that you would give to a friend you love, builds emotional safety. And emotional safety is the foundation of self-trust. Think of your brain as a little child that needs kindness, needs support, or a tiny little dog, puppy that needs that continued reassurance to build that trust. That's what we want to do. And that's what we do inside the Purposeful Path. We help you reconnect with your internal compass so your actions feel like a reflection of who you are, not a performance for someone else. So let me leave you with this. You are the expert on you. You've just been taught to doubt it. Self-trust isn't loud or dramatic, it's quiet, it's subtle, it sounds like, I know. This is enough. That doesn't feel right for me. And every time you honour those nudges, you strengthen that muscle. So your takeaway for today, try the Decision Debrief once per day this week. It only takes a couple of minutes, but it creates momentum because it brings your attention back home and lets you see whether there's any gap between what you felt internally and what you actually did. And let me know in the comments what you notice when you try it, or where you feel your self-trust is strongest right now. And if this video helped reframe how you think about following through, give it a like and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one.